Alrighty, and welcome to the Besides the Norm podcast. My name is Scuba. We're here with Monk.
What's happening?
Alright, I was trying to avoid doing a still game pun there. I was about to say Reclam before I started. And, it's just one of those things.
Hard,
It's really difficult. And it's only really difficult when you happen to have someone from Still Game on the line. How are you doing, Scott?
Oh, morning, guys.
How's your day been, man?
Yeah, been not bad. Slow start to the day, thanks to the snow. Well, it's been a slow start to the day every day since March, really. So
It has actually sucked for a good while. How's it going on your side of things? Because obviously, acting has finished. Has been stopped since March. How's things from your perspective, man?
Yeah, it's been pretty slow. But like the rest of the industry, it's just finding time to do other things. And I've been very fortunate. My father works. He's the manager of a resettlement home for homeless men in Brighton, called the Arch. So I've been working. Started off kind of volunteering there at the beginning of the pandemic, and then I've actually been working there. So I've been doing that, which has been a complete change of scenery for me. Working with guys, a whole host of guys who come out of rehab, guys who come out of prison, guys who've just come directly off the street, and kind of it's 12 flats that they have there, and just kind of working there, dealing with the guys, helping them out. So it's been quite rewarding, but at the same time, it's me been getting into that 9 to 5. Well, sometimes it's a lot longer than that, doing a back shift or whatever. So that's been an eye opener, which it's been great to do. But I've got itchy feet to get back doing what I love doing, which is obviously performing.
Has there been? I mean, I can things like Emmerdale and stuff are on, but a lot of films have stopped filming. A lot of TV shows have just stopped. Is anything happening now? Is there plays anywhere?
Online stuff, maybe?
So some stuff that's happened is some theatres are moving on to a digital format where stuff is getting live streamed. And I actually was working on a project with my friend Jordan Blackwood, and we approached Renfrewshire Council. I'm a Paisley boy, so approached them in September with an idea. And I suppose it just depends. We're an independent young company trying to do a new type of show, and they just were so. It was too much of a risk. They couldn't really. They didn't want to commit any money to it, so that's on the back burner. Maybe some point next year. But there are things happening, and TV and film projects. A lot of the stuff that started back up, should I say, was things that kind of got finished because of the pandemic. So they had to obviously finish. The projects. I know, Line of Duty went back. They had to finish the season they were filming, and then I think a lot of stuff's been like that. But there is new stuff, but it's all very limited, and it's the guys at the top of the tree who seem to be doing a lot of the work at the moment, which is just fine.
I mean, they can afford to get tests every day, and they've got private doctors on standby and shit like that. Didn't really hear that for local theatre groups.
Yeah, stuff like that, but also the big television companies, instead of maybe doing 10 programmes in a year, they'll just be doing 1 or 2 this year.
Right.
So what it does is that just means when I'm going up for auditions, or for instance, there's just less roles available. And, that's understandable. Obviously people are, not want to take risks, and it just takes one member of the cast to get it, and then the whole thing shuts down for 2 weeks. And, to give you an example, filming something like Still Game, it's done over a 6-week period. Right. So, the BBC couldn't really afford to hire all the actors for 6 weeks and then have to take a 2-week hiatus and then keep everybody for an extra 2 weeks. So, they say film is money, that way every take costs money, and to kind of take a two-week risk or a 2-week hiatus, I think most productions financially couldn't cope.
That's it.
Puts into perspective Tom Cruise's rage.
Yeah, actually, it was really interesting, because you're not only looking when I heard that, obviously it was. I think if you don't work in in the industry, I think you might be a little bit surprised by that. But actually, he's wearing so many hats. He's an actor. He's a global actor. an international brand, but he's also the exec producer of that film, which you've got to look at as like a multi-million-dollar business.
Definitely.
And if people are fucking about, if you run a cafe on the high street and you've got staff who are not taking precautions, you'll give them a telling off. You'll be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I think when it gets to like that higher level, I think people might say that's no way to talk to a member of staff in this day and age, but I don't agree with that. If people make mistakes or fuck about, they deserve to get a telling off.
Mm-hmm. Well,
the world's going too soft if you can't shout at people when there's a global pandemic and they're not taking the correct, you know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Well, that's one of the great things as well. The WWE champion right now has caught COVID as well. So he must be getting around somewhere behind the scenes.
You had to just fucking squeeze in wrestling.
Had to squeeze a wee bit of wrestling in. Sometimes you just have to. Sometimes he's originally from Scotland as well. So so Scott, we got you on to talk about a bit about like your sort of career so far and stuff like that. So could we talk about what first got you into acting? What made you get into the acting side of things?
So it was really just when we moved to Paisley when I was about the summer of me turning 5 or 6 or whatever, and we moved to this little housing estate, and there was a girl like 5-6 doors down who went to a youth theatre called Pace, and we were obviously playing on the street as kids do, and my mum got talking to her mum, and she was saying there's this youth theatre, and I think for my mum and dad it was just a way to extend the respite at the weekend, so I'd go and play football in the morning, Saturday morning, then I'd be at Pace in the afternoon, and it saved me having to go being dragged around the shop through my mum, my sister, my auntie, my dad was working. So that's kind of how it started, and then it just became a part of my routine every week, going to Pace Youth Theatre, and then I suppose up until maybe like 12, 13, maybe started taking it a wee bit more seriously as I started to kind of move up through the internal ranks at Pace. They started, they've got guys who are more serious there, people who just want to do it for a laugh, or people who are interested in it, and then it just gets a little bit more intense. And then I suppose by the time I was like 14, 15, I kind of always go back to this point. I'd been on trials with Queen's Park for the summer, and football trials, and they said, we're not going to take you forward because you're as good as what we've got. And my dad, we were sitting in the driveway, and my dad said, well, you've got to choose. He said, you can't be playing football and then going straight to going to like doing a show, an acting class or whatever. You've got to, if you want to be a footballer, you've got to focus solely on the football and give it everything you've got, or if you want to be an actor, you've got to maybe just do football for a hobby and go and play for a wee Saturday team and not try and make it. So I went, all right then, I'll choose acting. I thought that was the one I would have a better chance at succeeding in, and it's my biggest regret because I'm absolutely crap at acting, and I was brilliant at football.
Well, you could have always went. You could have always went in the Vinnie Jones route. Played football for a while and then played like a hard man in gangster films.
No, anybody who knows me would, I chose the lifestyle that was much more suited to me. Acting, you don't, this. You can go out, you can eat what you want, you can go to parties, drink. It's a lot. Drama school, it's a lot more casual than being an academy boy at a football team.
Can imagine.
You know what I mean? I think I had a lot of fun. Which I might not have had if I was a footballer, and I probably would be playing, maybe League 2 or juniors, getting paid 50 quid a week. So
I could just.
To be fair, some footballers have a smashing time. It looks like.
Well,
they're at like the top leagues.
I think I probably had a lot better time in the 60s and before. That's when they were like in the days of like on drugs and all that stuff. It's a lot more regimented, I would say, a lot like nowadays, a lot more training involved. And
yeah, but I also just think it's like if you're not in that, I've got some friends who play, and it's an all right living. It's like maybe 400 or 500 quid a week, but it takes up a lot of your time, and I think there's only a small percentage of people, especially in Scotland, who get to play for those maybe top 3 teams, that you actually get to earn a really substantial living.
Yeah.
And then obviously if you can make the move down south, but it's the same as acting. It's like you get guys who are happy, in River City, and they do that, and it's a good job, it's a good earning, it's a good wage coming through all the time. But the dream would be you want to get down south and you want to get onto one of these bigger BBC shows, or you want to make it across the pond and do a Hollywood film. I mean, it's football and acting is always, they're very, for me, they're really good like alignings to see where you are. I always compare myself, like when I'm talking to my dad about my career, I says, well, I think I've made into the first team, just need a bigger move now, a bigger club, that type of stuff. I think it's quite similar.
I think there's always those parallels, and a really annoying thing about being from Scotland is because it's such a small place, you're always fighting for that, those amount of opportunities. Even like a lot of the stand-up comedians are all fighting for like a very small amount of spots that are allowed, it seems.
And then you have to deal with folk taking the piss, folk that have no sense of wanting to take things seriously or try different things. They're just like, oh, you're an actor, are you? Oh, you play football, do you?
But you get that in every walk of life, though. But it does feel a lot worse here.
Oh, but if you're in LA and you're an actor,
I suppose it's taken a little bit more seriously than it is here.
Paisley or...
Because we even get the same thing. We started the podcast and people take the piss at us for, do you just like...
It's talk to cunts.
Stupidity, but...
I did... Unfortunately, we're a very pessimistic country, and I think that's a culture that might change, hopefully changes, but, that's just... something passed down from generation to generation. I think even with my grandfather, if he was still alive, when I first told him I was going to be an actor, I think he was just like, right, how are you going to earn a real living? And my mum, to an extent, when I first said that, she was like, maybe you should go and get a degree, and lots of people do. She was trying to get me to go and be an accountant, and I couldn't, at the time. I think I just pandered to her for about 3 years. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Oh, yeah, I might do that. And then absolutely, no plan. 16, I applied for drama school, got in, left school at the end of 5th year. Went and started drama school at 17. And then kind of just never really looked back. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And, I'm very fortunate, and I know that when... like over the pandemic, been working at the Arch, that kind of idea of going in to kind of the same building and working with like the same people, although they're lovely, and it's a job at the end of the day. Whereas I don't feel like acting is a job. It feels sometimes it is a job, when you're the early mornings and you're traveling a lot. But I feel like when you're actually doing the work, which is like behind the camera or on stage, that's just fun, and it gives you a way to express yourself. And I think a lot of people in society don't really get that, and that's why like yesterday I've been working on the music for this one-man show I've been working on, and I was in the studio, and the guy I was in the studio with, I was saying, like, we should be doing this type of thing like every week, just being able to go and do something creative and not worry about it. And that's the problem in this country, or in the UK, I think, with the arts, is that we're so massively underfunded, and it's kind of not seen as a staple of like our kind of day-to-day life, that actually people are missing that bit of their brain. And actually, like, if you go to countries like, the Scandinavians are hugely, the Germans, they're hugely artistic, they do a lot in Europe. And then also if you go across to certain, like New York, a very creative city, and I just think that we kind of lack that sometimes, and it's just because there's not enough money. Like, there's some amount of actors and artists who come out of these like art schools, world-renowned art schools, world-renowned drama schools, and they can't make a living.
Yeah,
they end up doing like.
When you go, Scott.
I was just going to say, like, they end up basically people end up being like, they work they're a restaurant waiter who dips their toe in acting when really, they dip their toe in painting, or they try to be musicians but they work, in a factory or something like that. It should be the opposite way about it. That they just have to go and do the wee odd steady job now and again, and actually the thing that keeps them is the arts. But we're criminally underfunded.
Definitely. Do you feel as well, like we were speaking to, we've got a friend that's involved in the Scottish Youth Theatre, and she was talking about the fact that a lot of things like plays and stuff get overlooked by a lot by working class people, and we can even attest to that. We haven't been to see a play, I think, ever.
I think we dismissed it. We thought it was like middle class snobbery, and
well, that's because it's equated for some reason in my head, like with opera. For some reason, it's like equated in that same price bracket for some reason. But is there a way you're able to like convince people to actually go to plays and stuff like that? Do you have something that would make somebody want to go?
Well, I think to put it in perspective, I think there's certain places. I don't know if maybe don't quote me on this, but it might be in this. It might be in Germany, or it might be in that actually the opera is attended by like university students, like from all class backgrounds, because it's so accessible financially, and actually because obviously I think it is Germany because they've got such a rich musical history. They've got a lot of like the major. Musicians of the time come from Germany, and I think like it's something in that culture that they're really interested in. But going to like towards the theatre, I mean, the thing that got me hooked in the theatre, was my mum and dad taking us to Panto, really, and taking us to see the Crankies.
Right.
And that from an early age. I mean, the Crankies, by the sounds of it, do you know what the Crankies are?
Aye.
Oh yeah.
So Jeanette and Jimmy Cranky, and like seeing that on stage and the ability for them to like make the audience, it was such a simple thing. Like, you're going into a live space and somebody's on stage pretending to be somebody else, but they're making everybody in the room laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was an amazing thing, to be able to do that. I think there is definitely an element of certain plays are artistic expressions. So, that might alienate some folk. But at the same time, people are definitely trying to make theatre for all kinds of people from every walk of life. I mean, I know Celtic and Rangers, they both did, terrible shows to try and get football supporters into theatres. And there's things like the Steamie is obviously a very well-known working class play. Like, there are things like that, like Trainspotting. I mean, if that was on, would you not be interested in going to see that on stage?
That's exactly those kind of things, and we know they exist as well, but we just.
I never clicked on them. Like, see, the fact you brought up the Crankies there. I know who the Crankies are, but I'd never thought about them as being theatre. I always thought about like Romeo and Juliet. Like that was the only thing.
Again, that's kind of what comes to your head. Could we go back just a few seconds?
Aye.
You mentioned Celtic and Rangers done something there. I've never heard of this. Could you explain? Could you tell me what this was?
So they both did shows at the. Quiet. Can you guys hear me okay? Sorry, my Siri just started talking to me.
Oh, that's all right,
so basically, like, Rangers did something like about the March of the Billy Boys or something like that, and they had Grado and Stephen Purden and guys like that in it. And then Celtic did one, I think it was like the Road to Seville, or it was about the Lisbon Lions or something like that.
Right.
And there's been loads. There was a show years ago. He's no a Billy, he's a Tim or something like that.
I heard about that.
There's been loads of football shows over the years, and that basically, they're just trying to take. I mean, obviously at the end of the day, these, somebody's trying to make money. That's where it comes from, but these guys, they sell out and they pack, and Celtic and Rangers fans go and see these shows. I'm sure they did one. They did one. They did one about the Hearts football players who died in the First World War. They did something at Tynecastle during the festival last year. So they definitely do. They don't shy away from doing stuff about football or about things that might that are a bit closer to home to most working class people, not just arty pieces of.
Their local team's East
I don't
Fife.
know. I'm not.
So they're probably not done.
Well, an East Fife production would be like at like the Adam Smith Theatre or something like that. It would be like a really kind of small thing.
Well, they maybe could do a show about you guys going. Did you not go to Ireland last year and the game got postponed?
Or they can.
2 years ago. Oh, right, okay. I remember East Fife got drawn in one of the cups against an Irish team, and they went over. All the lads went over for a barney, and it got called, for a piss up, and it got called off.
Oh God, that would have been.
See, this is something that there's acting fans that like ken every actor, and like Joe Rogan kens every MMA fighter, and football fans that ken who East Fife is. To me, that just blows my mind. I've never been.
Yeah, and actually, I'm probably somebody who knows a bit more about football than I do about actors and acting. I mean, I've never really, when you talk about like who was your favourite actor or who do you look up to, and a guy who I'm not really somebody who like memorises like all the films. Some actors basically they play this game. I think it's called Robert De Niro. So if I say Robert De Niro, you then have to say a film that Robert De Niro's in. So say for instance you say Heat. Then I would have to say, well, who was in Heat? It would have been, so Al Pacino's in Heat.
Oh,
and then you would go, right, what a film that, and I'm rubbish at it.
Well, I've already lost you.
Are superb.
Listen, I think you've never seen Heat then.
I've never seen Heat.
So you'd have lost right
I wouldn't
away.
have been able to tell you a film that Robert De Niro was in. I'm really shit at that.
Aye. So, and to be honest, I'm not too good at it either, whereas I play Football Manager. I'm a big gamer. So as soon as you talk about any team in Scotland, I'll be able to tell you something about them.
Mm-hmm.
I just love football, man. I absolutely love it.
Well,
who the fuck is it Sean Byrne plays for again?
Dundee. It used to be
Dundee, yeah. Yeah, Dundee, yeah.
I was surprised that you knew that as well. Jesus Christ.
I'm sure he's an attacking midfielder.
Well, that's incredible.
I couldn't tell you that.
Do you know where he's from?
Is he not from Ireland?
No. A wee guy called Sean Byrne. He's from the same town as us. A wee town called Kennoway.
Yeah, that's the only reason I know him.
That's Jack Byrne, I think.
All right, different guy. That's incredible that you just said Dundee today, where I was like, what the fuck? Right, so Edward, if we go back into the acting, so you were at a theatre group. Did you remain in the theatre group when you went into acting school?
No, so basically, like, when you go, I mean, at the time I was there, the pace is kind of like for people right up to like 18, so kind of people who are like still in 6 years at school, but once you go into drama school, like, you kind of don't really have time. Drama school was like a Monday to Friday, full-time course, and then obviously, and when I was in first year, I was still kind of like living up in Glasgow, but not really officially, like kind of dossing on people's floors and stuff like that. And then by the time I went into second year, I was working 3 jobs. I had a wee flat near the art school, and I was working for Pace, actually. I was going there and doing some work for them, and then I was working in TGI Fridays. I was working in a bar. I was a PR for a nightclub, PR for the garage. So I just like, I was, privileged to an extent that, my mum and dad could help me out, a wee bit every month. Like, if I was 50 quid, 60 quid short for my rent, maybe I'd spent too much on boozing, they'd be able to help me out, which a lot of people from, my, some similar upbringing to me wouldn't be as fortunate. But I was also at drama school with people like, I remember going up for a grant, basically, which was like you go in, you perform a monologue, and then whoever they think is kind of like the best at the monologue, but also like in the worst financial situation, going into third year, they would give you like a kind of £1,000. And I'll never forget this. There was a girl in my year, she was from New Zealand, so she'd already came over to the school, and she was paid something like $9,000 a year, for her fees herself, including obviously living in a new country. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, obviously in second year, I was like, right, I'm working 3 jobs. This is really unsustainable for me going into third year, because I'm not being able to give it all the time. So this would help me. Mm-hmm. And the girl told the panel that her mum and dad had to sell their house for her to be able to stay and do third year.
Yep.
And then obviously when she got the grant, it turns out that they'd sold one of their holiday homes.
Oh,
what a bastard! And I was just like, how, you know what I mean? And it was really like that's what you're dealing. You know, that's kind of what you were dealing with. You know, people with crazy. Like there was a boy from Hawaii in my year, and I think his mum was like a chief executive of Coca-Cola. You know, and at one point I think you know, he was like, you're not even working class coming to, you know, and all that stuff. And I just was like, mate, you know, go fuck yourself, man. You don't know.
Some insufferable bastards in this.
Because it's, I mean, I knew that sort of thing maybe existed like in the beginning part. Like if you go to any university, there's always like the sort of the working class and middle class sort of bickering with each other.
You've got the whole concept of the Glasgow uni accent.
Aye.
So there's obviously like a section of people that go to these things, but there it just seems like it's amped up to a fucking ridiculous
to hear the way you're speaking about this, it's like I'm obviously not everybody's like that, but the dog eat dog world, it's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, but I also like, you know, I've met some wonderful people over the years who are, you know, really well privately educated people who've been to Oxford, who are really gracious and lovely and fantastic people who I'm very lucky to have in my life. And then, you know, you just unfortunately, like that guy just obviously lived in a very, very different reality to me, you know, living on an island like Hawaii and, you know, having mummy be able to pay for everything and, you know, coming to Glasgow and not really having you know, living in, it's like moving to Glasgow and just seeing like 2 or 3 streets every day, and you think you know the city. You know, the city, and you know, obviously, like my dad's from Thornley Bank, you know, that area, Kermodrick. You know, so I spent a lot of time there with, you know, my granny and granddad and family. My mum's from Liverpool, so you know, I've got a real dual city citizenship, which is made up of like some lovely characters, but you know, from quite rough areas, you know, who, you know, I've got Scouse family who would, you know, if you were in their house and they left your wallet open, there was a terror in it, they'd take it and, you know, think it was a laugh. You know what I mean? So it's just the way it is, and you know, you can't expect everybody to know your situation and or you know, understand it and then be well-rounded individuals. I mean, these people were young as well, so to give them the benefit of the doubt looking back now. But if I saw him now, I wouldn't even acknowledge him. I wouldn't, you know, be like, "Oh, how you doing?" I just walk right past him.
I wasn't still a game. Fuck you. Who won now, dickhead?
I would. He's not. I don't even think the boy's an actor anymore. So
just wasting his time in Glasgow for a wee while just to annoy people. Really, it just seems.
Yeah. I actually think he went and then he said he wanted to go and be a clown, so he went to clown college in a bit of America or something like that, and just disappeared into the. You know, one of these people who can just go and do whatever. You know, he can do whatever they want. You know, which would be nice. You know, and it goes back. It goes back to that point I was saying. You know, like being in the music studio yesterday, being able to like just go and do anything creative because you can afford to do it. And I think that goes back to like your initial point about the theatre maybe coming across as a middle class thing, because, you know, working class guys, you know, who are going out, you know, like guys, you know, brickies or electricians, sparkies, guys who work on the roads, guys who work on the trains, you know, it's very much like you have to go and earn your money by working, and I think it's quite a hard thing to understand that you could go into a room and pretend to be a person for a day and get paid for it. You know, I do know that's. I took a lot of stick for it, you know, when I was at high school as well. You know, guys just not really, guys thinking like the old cliches, you know, acting's for girls and, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, like my mates would go on nights out and they'd be like, "So what did you learn at drama school today?" Like, show us you being a tree and stuff like that. So,
yeah, that's right, yeah.
I remember all the sort of similar stuff as well, but I'd all done like drama at high school and stuff, but I got the same shit as well. It's just...
Aye, but it was a laugh, you know what I mean? And I think people who are, you know, I think I by the point I was at drama school, I wasn't insecure about it anymore. I was pure like, yeah. And then I'd try to like get involved. So I'd be like, you know, drunk in the middle of a dance. You know, I'll be like, "Oh, I've been mastering the table." this week. And then I'd be like, oh, guys, so I'd be like in the middle of the dance floor, like bent over, like making my back flat, and they would all put their drink on my back, and then like, you know, like just shit like that, you know what I mean? Just having a laugh, you know. And obviously all the boys at school now, you know, they all think it's class. Obviously, like it's just that not knowing, not understanding. Like, you know, you see these guys doing like comedy programs or dramas that you watch, and you think, oh, actually, that's what acting is. No, it's not, you know. I think once they see, like, obviously something like Still Game, you know, everybody, you know, they kind of, well, the general collective is that they love it. And
well, let's speak,
you know,
about
like,
that. Like,
I think,
what was it? What was your mates' reactions to hear you were in Still Game? Like one of the most significant cultural documentaries in Scotland.
Documentary.
I think I kind of kept it on the down low, just because I was living in London. And I was up filming, and I kind of told my close friends who were all like, you know, buzzing, but at the same time, I kind of downplayed it.
Right. Just
from experience, you know, you don't necessarily know. You know, sometimes things get lost in the edit room floor, which has been you know, you go and film stuff, and then it doesn't actually make it into like the final episode. So, you know, you keep it on the hush until it comes out. But obviously, like my like the night that Greg Hemphill first contacted me back in like the February, I think it was, saying, we've wrote this part, me and Ford want you to come and meet us and read for it. And I was like, told my dad, and he's like, you know, he lost his shit. He's like, you kidding me on? I was like, no. I was like, I think is this person kidding me on? You know, is this a person pretending to be Greg? And that was really surreal. But you know, they send you a message like that, and then you don't hear anything for about 3 months, and you're like, oh, maybe it's disappeared.
Yeah.
And then they were just like, when are you next in Glasgow? Do you want to come and meet us? So I went to Greg's house, and you know, was sitting with him and Ford, just in awe, really, trying to keep my shit together, you know, like. And they were like, right, we're going to read these scenes, try this, try that. And then out of like nowhere, like they're just sitting obviously in like their normal clothes. You know, Greg had a massive beard at the time, Ford's wearing like a big pink shirt. You know, it's dead chilled out, and then next thing you know, they just turn into these two old men. And that's probably one of the moments that's probably one of like my best memories. Like, not just as an actor, but like as a person, because to be able to get to like witness that and see that, you know, completely out of context, away from it being on the telly, you know, and that being like the first day to like me building like a working relationship with these guys, it was really amazing to see. And something like I remember walking out, you know, I left the house, phoned my dad straight away. I was like, it's fucking bonkers. So I was like, trying to explain everything like really, really quickly, and not making much sense, and just like feeling like really happy, but like really like, have I got the job? And then about 20 minutes later, Greg phoned me, well, like less than that, you know, I was like, oh, Dad, I've got to go. Greg's phoning me, I've got to go. But like, hurry up, fuck off, bye. You know, pick up, and Greg's like, yeah, we think you're fantastic, we love you, we want you to do the gig. And I was just like, phone my dad back, say, oh, I've got it, brilliant. And then phoned my agent, and told her, and she was just like, oh, well, you know, straight away the voice of agents know how
she knows
to
the deal, sort of thing.
Anyway. Aye, so she's just like, oh, steady on. She says it's not formal until they make an offer. And then I was like, but what are you talking about? Like, they've offered it to me. They're the exec producers. They write it. It's their show. And she's like, it's the BBC. And then about I think on the Thursday of that week, I think that was like maybe like Tuesday, I think on the Thursday I get a phone call from my agent. She's like, right, you've got a meeting at the BBC tomorrow. And I was like, right, what for? And she's like, for Still Game. They want you to go in and audition properly. And I was like, right, well, can you send me the script? And they're like, no, we can't do that. They're not giving it out. What? And I was like, right, okay. So I turn up, and I'm sitting there waiting. And I was like, this is so fucking like surreal. I was like,
is that more nerve-wracking? Is that more nerve-wracking doing it in front of BBC executives than in front of Ford and Greg, or is it completely different?
Well, it was nerve-wracking because I felt like I felt like I could lose this now.
Because you're having to do it again.
So basically you feel like you've got the job, and then you're having to go into a room and to these people you've not got the job, and you're kind of like confused, and you're kind of like, why is this potentially, am I going to lose this opportunity? So I'm sitting there, and then like two people turn up who I know, and I'm like, all right guys, what are you in for? And they're like, auditioning for Still Game. I was like, oh cool, what part are you up for? And they're saying Methadone Mick. And I was like, all right, cool. Trying not to be like, like surprised or like nervous.
Playing it cool, man. Playing it cool.
And then they pull out script. Trying to, probably failing. And then they pull out scripts. And I'm like, have you got scripts? And they're like, yeah, we got sent it to this morning. So I was like, they've had like time to like prepare the script, and I've obviously just seen it like for 25 minutes in Ford and Greg, with Ford and Greg like a week ago. So I'm proper like bricking it now, and then get into the room, and it's like the director and the exec producer, and I'm like, hi guys, how you doing? And they start the whole spiel of like, thank you so much, have you had a chance to read the script? And I'm like, no, I wasn't sent the script. And they're like, oh right, okay, well you'll be fine, let's just get into it. And then I start doing the scene like the way that Ford and Greg had told me to do the scene. Right. And they're like, the director kind of stops me at the end of one of the scenes. He's like, why are you doing it like that? And I was like, he's like, could you try it like this? And I just went, well, I don't really think that's what the writers had in mind. And he was like, the director's like, what the fuck is... The guy's like, what the fuck's this guy talking about?
Aye.
How do you know what the writers have in mind type thing? And I was just like, because I was in Ford and Greg's house on Tuesday. I was at Greg's house on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And kind of like explained, and then they were like, all right, okay. And then I did the second scene, and they were like pissing themselves laughing.
Right.
And I was like, right, okay. But I walked out. You then, after you leave the audition, you're seeing people that who are going up for this part. You think in your head, I've already got this job, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. So it's an anxious couple of days, like very nervous. You think, I've had that emotion of getting the job, pure buzzing from it. Then I feel like this has been taken away from me. And then you kind of like in this area of not knowing. And it was like another week before somebody phoned me and said, oh yeah, you've officially been made the offer from the BBC.
Aye.
And it was like...
That is one of the things... That is one of the things that scares me to death about acting, is the
anxiety medication.
The unsureness. Constantly. I'm bad enough. Like when you were only just like a few minutes late for the interview, and I was like, he's called it off.
Aye.
That's it. We're done. We're fucked. We're not going to be able to do anything. Aye. For me to have to wait 3 months to then find out like you have to go for another audition or to turn up for someone else, and like there's hundreds of other people there that I've been told that I've probably got. I could not do that at all, man. So like, you're a brave man.
I mean, it feels. I think it's quite sad as well, because how many times I think to myself, how many times have I maybe been in a similar position where I've turned up to do an audition and I've worked, you start talking to like your family, but I've got this audition for this programme, and then you've got the script and you work your arse off, overnight, you're up all night learning the lines, try to like perfect it, and then you turn up and somebody's already got the job. And they're just doing it because they need to, because it's the BBC and it's a formality. I mean, that's actors live on, that anticipation, that excitement, that basically once you get an audition, that the kind of chance of getting it, that adrenaline is kind of what you run on for like a month.
Aye.
Or like if you're at the height of when acting was great, maybe you're getting like, my aim was to try and get one a week, one audition a week, and that would be the thing that kind of keeps you ticking over. But, turning up to an audition, like seeing people that and you're thinking, I've got this gig. And these people are they're staying up overnight, working so hard. And then, I remember one of the boys I knew was like speaking to me like 2 weeks later, and he's like, I'm still waiting to hear back from that Still Game audition. And you're like, it's a horrible thing, because that's how actors end up playing off each other and not liking each other. But it's like, it's not my fault. I'm just trying to make a living. Just like you're trying to make a living, and it's hard to kind of like it's also not your job to be like to somebody, actually, I've got that job. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not...
of course,
that is
no
difficult,
say would be difficult as well.
Did anybody else turn up for the BBC auditions that you recognised or that we maybe know? Or you know to speak about that? Or
No, not. I wouldn't want to. I mean, I think I've probably already said a wee bit more than I probably should have anyway.
Right, that's fine.
When you said you read a part, was it a part that was already in? Is it a part that was in Stillgame, or was it written specifically to be an audition?
No, it was the Methadone Mick scenes that I'd read in Ford and Greg's house.
So
basically,
I remember the first scene you were in. It was I think you, Bobby, and was it Tam?
It was Bobby
Winston.
and Winston were doing
Winston. That was it. Aye, that was the first scene.
Getting the stuff.
So was that the first scene you done then? The scene with those two.
Winston, one-legged Winston.
Aye.
Is that what it is? Would you say? What would I say? I can't even remember it. I was in it.
I can't remember.
He says, I'm Bobby. Bobby the barman, and he says, I'm Winston, one-legged.
I was.
Not.
Sorry, on you go.
So my first day, my very first day on set, actually, like filming it properly, my very first scene was the letterbox scene.
Just talking about the eye there, man.
So that was my first scene that I did on my very first day with Ford and Greg, and that was that was like, it's probably one of like the Methadone Mick's probably like the best scenes he's got, really. And that shows you obviously how good I am as an actor, that my best day's work came in the first day and then everything that followed was rubbish.
I distinctly remember you having some criticism of this scene, Stephen. Do you want to go ahead?
What was that I said there, Lauren? What was that I said?
You said, I'm not allowing that because there's no way.
Yes, right, I'll cover this. Okay, so there's no criticism on your work. It's basically, my idea was that Methadone Mick couldn't be that silly or like stupid that he thinks, but because he's told a bunch of times that that's Isa behind the letterbox sort of thing. He's been told a few times. By
that point, has he?
I think so. I think by the end, but because even by the end of that scene, Methadone Mick, the character, still believes that he's speaking to a fucking magical letterbox. And I'm like, surely no. So,
obviously, in the realms of the BBC, and because at the time of the show, we're not really talking about like drug users properly, right?
Yeah.
We kind of always skim the surface of just methadone, right?
Because I think there was one mention of heroin on the first, but it never got mentioned again. It was always methadone that was mentioned.
So,
as far as I remember,
you're obviously as an audience member kind of making an assumption that Methadone Mick just takes methadone. There's a whole array of that methadone users, they take all sorts of drugs that kind of create psychosis, drugs that kind of like are trippy, and it's also like Methadone Mick comes across as a nice, happy, loving character, but there's also elements to him that maybe he's a drug addict at the end of the day, and who's to say that in the time that he's went from that the first scene, I think he's in that trying to buy a suit, and he's totally out of it in that buying a suit, and then by the time he gets to the flat, he's probably tripping balls.
It's a good point.
It's not necessarily. It's not necessarily like. I think we see an improvement in Methadone Mick over the series as he kind of spends more time with Jack and Victor and becomes a bit more of that part of that community. But actually, I think early doors, when we first meet him, before he starts getting the job and turning, he's kind of trying to put things in place to turn his life around. He's a hardcore drug user. And I think that's, I think that obviously you're limited in what you can say in a sitcom. I think the fact that even calling him Methadone Mick, I think was a hard enough thing to be able to talk about diazepam or Valium or, talk about all that stuff, which is in, if we're talking about a real person who uses methadone, well, they've got a very up and down relationship with drugs and recreational drugs.
It was the bit, I think, I'm trying to remember.
Has that answered your criticism, though?
It definitely did answer my criticism, and it's basically what you said.
It is what I said earlier.
There was a scene as well when they go. Jack and Victor are trying to get rid of some stuff at a charity shop or something like that, or they're trying to get some money, and then they end up like trying to give away a spoon in front of Methadone Mick, and there's a whole hilarity bit of the side there.
Trying to give a spoon to a junkie.
Aye, so that's the scene right before the door scene, the letterbox scene.
Is it?
So that's the first time they meet. The first time they meet Mick, I'm sure.
Right.
They see him and it's a wee troon spoon.
Wee troon spoon, that was it.
I think, because we had a laugh and we were sitting in the Govan Shopping Centre car park and the line was a bit different and Ford came up with cooking up junk on a wee troon spoon. Cooking up junk on a wee troon spoon.
I'm going to imagine there's lots and lots of things that happen during the Still Game that are like sort of improvised bits or just like we added in jokes. Do you have a lot of the things that have happened, or have you been sort of like strictly scripted stuff that you've stuck with?
I mean, I wouldn't actually say there is a whole lot of improvisation really from anybody else other than Ford and Greg, but the only time they don't really improvise while they're doing the scenes. They improvise maybe like in rehearsals to try and make like a little change, but it's actually quite regimented. Not in I don't mean that in like a disciplinarian kind of way. It's just, Ford and Greg are so good at what they do and they know the format of the show so well that what they write usually works.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that you can kind of change is your delivery. But, it's amazing. You could be doing a scene with them and then, they know your lines as well as you know your own.
Right.
And actually, like they they're so on it, and it was a privilege to work with them. Really, like, I mean, fantastic guys, fantastic human beings, and amazing at what they do. And for me to kind of get to, it was just a shame, like I didn't get to do more. And I mean that from the sense that the BBC, the way that it works is basically as an actor when somebody asks you to do a job, well, they book you for like a 6-week period. But if you're doing anything else, you can't really commit to doing it. So after I did the first series of Still Game, I went straight to do Line of Duty, and then I went on to a play called Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time, and I was doing that for 10 months.
Right.
So it's like for season 8, they'd wrote and season 9, they'd wrote a lot more stuff for me to do. But I was just unavailable because I was doing other jobs, and it's just the way the world is. As an actor, you're self-employed. You've got to take the work when it comes, and especially for season like the last season, I was doing White House Farm, which was a big ITV drama, which is something I've obviously I want to move into and do more of. So that was a big opportunity for me, but. Organisationally at the BBC, they were quite reactive instead of proactive to like booking dates and sending you scripts, and I think there was kind of just like an expectation that if Still Game came along, you would do it straight away and drop everything else. And actually, I couldn't really afford to do that because, again, I need to pay, I need to pay my bills. By the time I was doing White House Farm, I was trying to buy a flat, so I needed to. I needed some money, needed to get my deposit together and stuff like that. And I think that's, I'm just like, I know, my mum and dad, they're like, you can't just like wave a magic wand and be like, oh, like there's a deposit. I've had to go and fight for it and, get as many jobs as possible and work as hard as I can. And sometimes you miss out on opportunities that you'd like to do. You don't have the luxury of doing them because you can't afford to do it, if that makes sense.
Definitely, aye. I wanted to ask as well, obviously, Still Game, you were lucky enough to sort of bypass the whole pilot period and stuff like that you would have had to do for most shows. You have to go through like a piloting session. You do the pilot, you sort of go through like focus groups and all that kind of stuff to find out what needs to change in the show. I'm not sure like how in depth maybe that goes. I'm not even sure how accurate that is, but that's my rough assumption of like what happens. From Still Game, you just sort of went in and immediately started into a program that was already...
No, my phone rang, so my headphones connected to the phone, and I couldn't hear what you were saying. So just start again. So something about the pilot.
Well, basically, like, you've went into a program that's already been like sort of well established. You've not had to go through the process of like putting together a pilot episode and having to sit through focus groups and then having to eventually put the program out and wait and see what audiences think and then figure out it becoming a hit, then being accepted for a second series. You've bypassed that whole thing. How relaxing was that for you to find out that you've got this, that you're just going to sort of go immediately into TV and you're going to be sort of semi-successful straight away? How relaxing was that to hear?
Well, I mean, I know what you're trying. I think I know what you're trying to get to, the point of what you're trying to make, but I don't think it's ever relaxing because you're going straight into like it's like you're going straight into the fire because you're going straight into audience interaction. They're going to judge you straight away, and basically, if you don't get it right from an early point, the audience could go like, that character's crap. And if the audience think that, then I don't think there's any coming back from that. So I think it's I know what you're saying. I think not being there from the beginning or the building blocks, that does mean that I kind of can just come in when the show's relatively successful. And I think that's just the nature of the beast. But also I was doing this show Carnival Row, and I was in that from its kind of beginning, and that process over that first 2 years of trying to make the first series was, it was difficult because they were so unsure of what they wanted the show to be. They kept making so many changes, and actually, as a result of that, my character kind of did dwindle and kind of become less established than what it was maybe when the scripts were first sent out. So I think there's pros and cons to both, but at the end of the day, I think the only people that really matter is the audience. And although the exec producers like to think that they really matter, it's the audience at home, because they're the people who watch it, they're the people who spread the word, they're the people who make other people watch it. And Still Game would be nothing without its fans. And I think that's why Ford and Greg kind of said, that's it, we're going to do full time on it, because I think we've given they could probably have made another couple of series, and then maybe the viewing figures would have dwindled down and not been as good, and people would have been less interested in it. And actually, I think it's like it was a good point for them to leave. Coming back, doing 3 seasons since they come back. They've done three hydro shows. I was lucky to be a part of one of them, which was.
You were in the new one, right enough, eh?
Yeah.
With Karen Dunbar as well, which is a cool addition.
Well, they brought Karen Dunbar back.
Yeah.
Aye.
That's cool.
So the last show was kind of like a collection of everything Ford and Greg have done. So there was a few chewing the fat characters. Ronald Villiers started the show. They did You're Taking That Too Far. There was some great, it was some great moments. Again,
it's another theatre show we've missed. Fuck.
I will, like Still Game is they did 12,000 people were going to that, and there was people of all demographics. Old, young families, guys of all trades, people who just love Still Game.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible, man. It's incredible.
How does it feel? So, in Still Game, you're a character that's obviously, like, done up a lot, so that you didn't look... So, like, for instance, I'm a huge fan of Line of Duty, and I had no idea that you were the same person that played Methadone Mick.
I was... yesterday sort of looking at your back catalogue and stuff like that, your CV, and I said to Craig, because Craig's seen Line of Duty, I've yet to see it, but I was like, what's he like in Line of Duty? And Craig's like, what?
Aye.
And I was like, yeah, plays this guy in Line of Duty and shit like that, and Craig's like, what the fuck? I had no idea.
Aye. So how does it feel to be in, like, a show like Still Game where pretty much everybody in Scotland knows who you are, but also being hidden enough that they might not necessarily recognise you as Methadone Mick?
It definitely has its ups and downs, but also like sometimes it I don't know. It's like travelling on a train. sometimes it's peak time travel and it's really busy and loads of people bother you or come up and speak to you, and then sometimes it's like off-peak travel and nobody bats an eyelid. And, people don't recognise it. And I suppose it's just if it's at the forefront of people's minds. But, if people come up and say hello or people want a photo or stuff like that, it's great. I mean, any actor that kind of can't, I think unless you become one of like Hollywood superstars where it becomes like you can't walk out the front door without people taking pictures of you. I think, it's a real, actors have got to take it as a compliment because it shows that the character that you've built, people are taking that home and talking about it and thinking about it or like it or enjoy it enough to like recognise you walking down the street, because I've certainly walked down the street and been having days where my head's not looking at other people or interested in other people, and then, so for it to bring a little bit of joy into people's day or, into their life at that moment, for for any actor to be like, oh, I get so pissed off when people come and talk to me. It's like, what are you doing it for, man? Because if you don't, on the telly, like when you're in a theatre at the end of the show, people tell you what they think about the show. They either clap, they either boo, they either walk out early, or they give you a standing ovation. So you have that kind of relationship with the audience. Whereas in television, I suppose the only way people like you is social media or people coming up and recognising you in the street. So it's you've got to take it. It's part and parcel of the job. But at the same time, you'll never find me complaining about it. People, people coming up, and most people are really lovely, and come up and say nice stuff. There's been a few odd occasions where people have come up and saying, not so nice stuff and not so nice away. But it's, if you can take the positives, you've got to take the negatives.
Definitely.
You need a level of ego that I can't understand if you were to go up to an actor and go, oh, I hate you because you were shite in that thing.
That'd be irritating.
I know, but still game, it's like it's a different kettle of fish, because I try to explain to like some of my friends who are actors who live down south, and trying to explain what still game is, like trying to explain to them how we could do 15 shows at the Hydro and have 12,000 people there every show and it be like mass hysteria. People don't understand it, but that gives you the opposite to that, is that people in Scotland feel like they own still game. It's their characters that so people feel like the show is theirs because they've grown up with it. They've had it around for like 10 years, 15 years, during the past 20 years. So they think that these characters are Scottish and we own them. And there's a kind of nice thing about that as well, that people love it so much that they feel it's... Like, this guy's... Like, I never understand this. There's like people come up and tell me, it's like, I watch Still Game every single night before I go to my bed. And I just, it's amazing. And there's people like... I think Greg during lockdown done the hardest Still Game quiz ever.
I heard about that.
It was like question. Like I remember, like I turned it on and watched it for 15 minutes, and it just by that point it was on one of the series that I was in, and there was a question about my character. I had no idea what the answer was. Not and people know what it is. People know what the question was. Watch it religious.
Because I'm one of the gimps that you're describing right now.
Well, that's you've been one of the people that like, and I imagine most people like when the DVDs first came out, and we were sort of like half poor at the time, so we didn't have a lot of DVDs.
We had Still Game DVDs, and that was all the DVDs.
And it was up to like season 6 or something. Season 6,
I'm good on seasons up to season 6.
You're like fully. Well, you and our cousin Darren, we're going to shout him out here.
I'm fluent in Still Game.
You're fluent in Still Game quotes, man. There's like it's unbelievable. See when these two get together, it's fucking ridiculous because I could be sitting there sad. And we could be talking about fucking anything, and then there would be some sort of Still Game quote that would come away, and sometimes even I missed them. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm imagining, and there's a lot of people like that as well. Like, even what's become big now is certain people saying some things, and then the meme now is adding the Fergie saying, no, you didn't. That has become fucking iconically huge.
Favourite shit. Love it.
Oh, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
I mean, I think there was like I remember a time I was at a charity football event, and this wee boy came up and he was saying to me, could you do this scene for me? And I'll be the other characters.
Right.
And I was like to boy, I'm really sorry, but I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, right, what if I tell you the lines? And this boy's like 8. I was like, right, okay. And then he's like, he's talking me through the full scene. Eventually, I can't remember what it is now, but eventually I remembered the scene. So I'm standing at like this football pitch on the side, and I'm doing this scene with this wee boy, and he's playing like 6 characters. I was like, that's just fun. I was like, wee man, you really need to start doing something really. You know that brain of yours, you should really start doing something with it. You know, learning still game quotes. Maybe you should go and start reading doctor's books or something like that, if you can remember and retain information like that.
And is he doing the voices as well? Because you do that as well. You just go through the voices and shit.
Aye, terribly.
Terribly.
Aye. It was just, I was baffled by it. I mean, I actually said those lines. I took the time to memorise them, and then come 2 years later, I didn't even have a Scooby about what the boy was talking about. Sorry, mate, you need to explain to me what you want. And he's like, it's this scene, and you say this, and then Naveed says this, and then Isa says that, and then you say that, and I'm like, right, okay, yeah, fine, let's do it. Yeah.
Amazing, man, amazing.
I have been asked to do this, and I will do it before we move on to the next bit.
Well, the next bit was going to be the questions.
It's not a question.
All right, okay.
It's just a random silly fact that I have a friend in Singapore who I have sort of...
Oh, yes.
I sort of forced her to start watching the Still Game. We started watching TV shows together. She was showing me things that she liked watching, and so I thought, I'm Scottish, I'll show her Still Game and Chewing the Fat.
That's what you do as a Scottish person.
So she's like, she was born in Singapore. Our family's Chinese, so our first language is Chinese. So I had to explain some of the Scottish.
You have to explain Scottish humour.
Aye, but she is now a huge fan of Still Game. She now can quote things from it. She's a bit as sad as I am, and she's told me to say that being the only Asian Still Game fan, she wants to say that she's a huge fan of your work as well. So I say this.
Thanks very much.
Awesome.
But I will dispute that she's the only Asian fan. I don't actually think that's correct.
No,
I think
no
I was
problem.
Because there's a huge expat community in Vietnam.
Yeah,
my best friend lived there, and I was at a music festival about 2.5 years ago, New Year's 3 years ago, and I was there, and we were on this tiny little island, 5-day festival or whatever, house techno music festival, and some person came up to me and like, you know who I think you are you? And I was just like, oh no, if I bumped into you yesterday or something at a festival and said something or whatever. And she's like, you're Still Game, and then you're Methadone Mick, and then ran off, and then 15 people who all work and live in Ho Chi Minh City, and I've heard guys, all the members of the cast, getting stopped in Canada, getting stopped in LA, getting stopped places all around Australia, so it's, I think because of Netflix, it's really went on to a different level.
Was it worldwide on Netflix, not just UK?
I didn't think.
Yeah, it's worldwide. Yeah.
Oh, it's worldwide. Amazing. That'll be why Victoria's seen it then.
That'll be why you got it. Aye.
Makes a good point now.
I remember, just going back to when I was about 12, and I think we got the bus to Costa del Sol on a family holiday. And this was the time that you'd be walking through the resort or whatever, and they'd have the resort would be showing TV programs on a big screen. I don't know if you remember this, if you ever went away, a real, we remember Still Game with people, Scottish people on holiday in Spain at 8 o'clock at night watching Still Game on DVD. It's a really, a weird memory to be 12 years later, they'd have been watching me in that show, when somebody would have told me when I was 12 or something. That would have been quite a cool thing to know.
I feel really weird now because I now play a game online with a guy that was in Chewing the Fat, and now there's a guy for Still Game on my podcast. So I feel like I could die now and be quite happy.
I
think I've achieved
don't be daft. Don't be daft. You've got a lot more to go, and there's a lot more. You could probably get half of the Still Game folk on. They'd probably write up for it.
You know what? By the way, we were thinking of that once, because we're when we've done podcasts before, we've spoken to certain people that do certain jobs, and we're like, oh, we can get more of these guys that do this job.
Aye.
But then we're like, we don't want to kind of
over. Want to be a Still Game podcast or.
Well, we spoke to a teacher one day, and then we were like, we could speak to this teacher who teaches a different thing, and then we're like, we didn't want to kind of oversaturate, but I'm quite happy to oversaturate with Still Game stuff.
Aye, that's like the exception.
Yeah, or what you could do is you could just write to them and pretend that you're doing the podcast and just talk to them for a couple of hours and then never put it on air.
Yes.
Just do that one by one, so you get to meet them all.
That's a good idea, and I'm going to tell them that you told us to do that.
That's an absolutely fucking terrible idea, but we'll put them under the bus.
We'll throw them under the bus. Aye.
Yeah. As long as you don't waste my time, but you can waste their time as much as you
absolutely,
want.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I'll sign off on that.
Okay, well, so what I wanted to do before you go is, I know I've taken you over your time. I asked for a few questions on Facebook from people. Could we go through a few of them, just like quick fire?
Yeah, of course.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I'll start off with the questions I got, and then you can start with the.
I've only got one question.
You only got one, right? That's fine. So it's from our friend Liam Grubb. 2 questions from him. Has he kept his teeth from the show as a souvenir?
I have, yes.
Oh, you got them there?
2 sets.
Awesome.
Well, they're in the house. They're in the house somewhere, yeah. But I can't actually wear them anymore because they actually started messing up my front 2 teeth, and I went and got some dental work done.
Right.
And Dunfermline, actually. Dunfermline, so not too far from up your neck of the woods.
That's the rich party 5.
Is it Dunfermline?
Aye, Dunfermline is the rich party 5.
Right, okay.
He's been on telly, so he goes to the rich parts now.
What other film projects... Sorry for moving on swiftly there. What other film projects is he taking part in right now? Or like soon?
So I have... I don't know the release date yet. It was meant to be released in Holland before Christmas. I'm in a war film called The Forgotten Battle, which is like a World War II film set in Holland and stars Tom Felton, who plays Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter, and a couple of other British guys. And it's kind of like a story about the emancipation of the Dutch during the Second World War. So it's kind of multilingual. So it's like a film of three parts. 1 part's British, and then 2 parts are Dutch. Mm-hmm. Quite a lot of action. And that'll be. It was meant to come out before Christmas in Holland, but it'll be on Netflix some point this year.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
I want to quickly jump into this question because I wasn't going to say this question, but I think it's funny. Susie Robertson asked. So what I done was I put a picture up of Methadone Mick. I didn't put a picture up of Scott.
That's what
so
I
it
done.
Was like in character. So Susie says, "I don't know who he is. Is he in Panto? Are you in Panto?"
Are you in Panto?
No, I've never. I done Panto once, and that was way before Still Game Time. So no, nobody's ever asked me to do Panto. No, and maybe the way that the acting industry's going, I might have to try and find one next year.
Well,
earn some money.
Well, we tried to get an interview with Dave Benson Phillips from Get Your Own Back. And so we interviewed him, but we had a couple of technical issues, so we're going to have to do that again at some point. Who knows if it goes down because he's not getting back to us. But
we're on his bad list now.
We're on his bad list probably. But he done pantomime, but it was
have you still not paid him yet? Is that what it is?
And we will never pay him. But he done like a pre-recorded pantomime, and it was in some theatre in London with a bunch of other people, and they basically give away like Zoom tickets so people could like watch the pre-recorded pantomime, which I think's a cool idea, but again a bit cheating.
But I mean, you need to make money somewhere. You
need to make money somewhere. It's just the way it goes.
Right, next question.
Well, one of my best friends was doing is I think he's done the Panto at the Alhambra the last 2-3 years, something similar.
Okay.
Alan Orr, so he says it's very good up there with Billy Mack.
Definitely.
So next year, boys, you should make a commitment that you're going to go and try and see a pantomime.
I think we should do that.
Definitely going to say that because we filmed a pantomime, the biggest pantomime that's happened in metal. We filmed it last year and we put out a DVD of it, And it's sold well. The DVDs didn't sell well, but the actual pantomime sold well.
I'm obviously sure Scott's heard of this as well. But what we'll do is we'll move on with the questions. Melissa Haddo, shouts to her. Does he often get recognised when he's out of character, or do people just look at him and just think, I'm sure I know that guy? You kind of already
I'd say it's a mix of both. It's a mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes more than others. Some days, like normally, if I'm out having a drink or if I'm in a pub or something like that, that's when people, you feel people starting to look at you once, and then they look at you a second time, and then the third time they're kind of staring at you, and then they're like, fourth time, I know who that is, and then by that point you're like, right, let's finish our drinks and get out of here.
that would, I think, would start to annoy me after a certain time. People staring and then sort of looking away for a second and going, wait a minute, and then like,
I think it's something you get used to, because I think for the first year I was quite para. I was quite like I had to find out everybody that was looking at me, that type of thing. Like you're looking for people looking at you because you feel like somebody must be looking at me. And then after then people who you're with are like, well, you just calm the fuck down, nobody cares.
And
my girlfriend's very much like that. She's just like, what are you doing? Like you're just an actor. You're nothing special.
Jesus Christ.
Like that's really good.
I get that's
it's really good. It's like
it's one of the great things being for Scotland is that we're so humbling people that like anything you do, it's like, calm down. You've done that. Yeah. I imagine Karen Gillan gets the same shit. Like she's been in the new Jumanji films and shit. I imagine she gets the same shit for her pals as well.
When she's kicking about in Inverness, who do you think you are? You know what I mean, that type of thing. But my girlfriend, the way she does it, it's like there is an element that actors do think they're these special people, and I think it's good to just have like your partner be like really real with you, because it means you can trust them. For her to be like, you're just an actor. You're not out saving lives. You know what I mean, that type of thing, and it does kind of keeps you grounded and keeps you like, doesn't allow you to become cocky or arrogant or think you're better than people just because you happen to be on the telly. And I think a lot of actors do think they're better than people because they're on the telly, and it's really not the case.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got the clap for NHS coming up about 6 o'clock later on, so we'll be doing that in memory of Scott. We'll be doing that for you later on.
I thought you just said you both have the clap, and I was like, well, that's very unfortunate. You're not going to be doing that during the socially distanced times.
We're not that close.
We're not really that close.
I think we're related, but we're not that close. Also, I think that's illegal.
Slightly illegal, I would say. So the next question was asking if he's single, asking for a friend from Leanne Paul. He's already said, got a girlfriend there, so
no.
Unfortunately, Leanne, nope. Your friend is getting nothing.
Aye, friend.
Dave Grieve, how did you successfully manage to navigate the Methadone programme in such a short time? I'm imagining not you, I'm imagining he's asking about Methadone Mick.
You never know.
Well, yeah, basically, like, obviously working at the Arch, I've been going there for quite a long time. That's how I found the character. When they first pitched it, obviously it was written like that, but when I was about 15, 16 and I was going into my dad's work, and I met this I'll tell a story really quick. There was a young guy, he was maybe like in his 30s, and he was probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. He was like an aeronautical scientist doing a master's degree at Glasgow University, but he was a heroin addict.
Jesus.
And he was literally like one of the smart, he was talking to me about something to do with like Planet. And then 2 minutes later, he's like gouching because he's like, sorry, I need to go upstairs and take my medication. And he'd come back down, and then like 15 minutes later, he'd obviously taken his methadone, and he would, he couldn't talk. You know what I mean? He was, and that was kind of like the basis of where I got Mick from. Because it was a real person. Somebody who was just goes to show drugs. Don't mess with drugs, kids.
Definitely.
Don't start. You know what I mean? It's a very slippery road.
That's it. Well, that was my last question, Craig. You had your final question. We'll let Scott finally go.
So this one's for Tommy Sheridan. Do you know Tommy, or does he just happen to know about football?
No, I know Tommy well.
Right.
Okay.
So he's asked, on average, how many fouls does he commit in each game for the mighty Yellow Bibs?
On average, Well, I don't really think they're fouls, but we play against a team. We play against a team for Dumbarton, and they're miserable. They moan. They just moan. So I would say probably maybe 2 fouls a match. The Dumbarton boys might say it's a lot more than that, but as long as Tommy Sheridan, the mighty Yellow Bibs captain's happy, I'm happy.
Awesome. I was going to ask, do you have a message for Tommy Sheridan? Because we're going to be interviewing him very soon. He's going to be phoning the day at some point to arrange that. Do you have a silly question for Tommy, and we'll get that to him?
Can you talk us through your pre-match warm-up?
There you go. I'll write that down.
That's my question. All right, lads.
Right, thanks, Scott, man. We've taken you way over the time. I think I said 45 minutes to an hour. It's been an hour and 15.
Oh, you dirty liar.
Sorry, Scott.
That's okay. I better go before the girlfriend chases me. She's wanting to go for a walk with the dog, and I'm getting the glare through the glass door window. So
fair enough. Right, well, tell her I'm sorry, and I'll let you go, my man. Thank you for talking to us.
All righty. No worries, guys. Thanks for having me.
Right, man. Cheerio.
Cheerio. Bye bye.